Hello, I'm Charling and this is Duskers. So what is Duskers, you might be asking? Well, it's a strategy roguelite game developed by the indie studio Misfits Addict, the same guys who made a virus named Tom. The game's been in early access for a while, and so it was recently released and came out of early access, and I thought this was a good time to take a look at the game. So in Duskers, you play an operator who controls a variety of different drones with the objective of searching derelict spacecraft to find a variety of different items, as well as trying to find out what happened to all the humans. The aesthetics of the game is very interesting and actually quite unusual, but I do think that it suits the game and the theme really well. It kind of reminds me of Aliens. It's got that really sort of retro look where you are sitting behind a computer screen, not getting the full picture of everything that's going on, and you have to basically rely on the feedback from the drone cameras. So there are a number of different interesting effects that are overlaid on the screen, a lot of interference and that kind of thing, which really does create somewhat of a creepy atmosphere. So Duskers doesn't have any music as such, but it does have a variety of different ambient sounds which, when exploring the derelict spacecraft, add definitely to the atmosphere and creepiness, as well as the lonely atmosphere that the game portrays. And for the most part, I agree. I think that traditional musical themed tracks would probably have been somewhat out of place in this game, but I would have liked to have heard maybe some kind of musically evolving soundscapes in the background on top of the ambient sounds for added atmosphere. So unlike most games, this entire game is driven by using the keyboard. There are some instances where you can use the mouse, but for the most part you'll be making your way around the various menus and configuration screens, issuing commands to your drones from the keyboard. So for example, when you're actually navigating around the levels, you would type navigate 1 or 2, which would send your drone number 1 into room number 2, or by typing generator, which would cause a drone in the room with a generator and a drone with a generator mod to be able to power the generator, or by typing gather would of course instruct drones with the gather module to gather all the resources in any given room, and so on and so forth. And there are a variety of different commands in the game, which I'm not going to go into all of them obviously, but there are a fair amount of commands in the game that you will be typing. You don't actually have to type out the entirety of each word, as the game will autofill in the rest once it's clear what command you are trying to input. And I think it's relatively intuitive. It's not overly complicated and not overly difficult to get into when you're setting these commands for the drones, and it won't be very long before you're up and running sending your drones in around the screen. And it actually feels kind of rewarding in a strange way to navigate from an overall map of the ship, sending your drones in just from typing essentially what are console commands. So each derelict spacecraft is divided into a number of different rooms, each room potentially containing a number of items like scrap or fuel, which are required to repair your drones and allow you to travel to other derelict spacecraft. There are broken drones which can be looted for new mods, as well as disabled drones which you can actually tow back to your ship so they can be added to your roster, as well as ship upgrades and that kind of thing. The rooms also contain objects that can be used like interfaces which control the onboard ship defenses, which can be used to take out enemies when they are lured into rooms with gun turrets, or they can be used to survey the ship, which reveals the room layouts of the ship itself, or even to scan the ship, which allows you to see what items certain room contains, which in turn will allow you to decide whether or not the risk is worth taking to get those said items. Obviously each room has entry and exit points as well, so you can open and close doors with their corresponding numbers. For example, D1 would open or close door 1. And opening and closing doors as you progress through the ship is also one way to make sure that you don't get swamped or swarmed by enemies. It's a good way to keep your drone safe. Just need to make sure that you don't open the wrong doors, which will unleash whatever enemies lie behind them. And doors need to be powered as well. So you'll be using certain drones to power certain sections as you explore them, and then move those drones forward to power other generators in order to explore the rest of the ship. It can lead to some interesting situations where enemies start coming from rooms that are not powered. You don't have a drone nearby to power them, so there's no way to stop the onslaught of enemies, and that can be basically the end of you. So there's somewhat of a tactical approach as you basically start exploring each ship, especially as you progress through the harder ships in the game. So the idea is to explore each ship as much as you can. Obviously you want to pick up as much scrap as you can in the event that you need to repair your drones, or pick up fuel, because obviously you need fuel to explore other ships and that kind of thing. And for the most part it all sounds pretty simple until the game starts throwing more challenges at you, where some rooms will contain hostile drones or aliens. There are certain environmental events that are going to happen. That's going to complicate things as well, like broken airlocks or radiation and that kind of thing. And also, when you start the game, the drones you're assigned have a random mods as well as your ship, so you aren't always going to start with the same mods, and you are going to have to try new approaches to each situation when you play through it. In one run you may have a drone that has the use of a motion sensor, which will allow you to scan rooms adjacent to the room the drone's in to know if there are enemies in them or not. And in another run you won't have that, but you'll have a drone that has stealth, so you'll actually have to send the drone into said rooms to see what dangers lie ahead. So there are a variety of different enemies that can be found in Duskers, all of which will require you to deal with in a different way. The more simple ones, obviously, they can be funneled between rooms, so you can just sort of guide them through a number of different rooms and lock them off in certain places that you've already explored, which allow you to explore the rest of the ship freely. Unfortunately, not all the other enemies are this predictable. Some of the more alien type enemies use vents to travel throughout the level, and vents cannot be closed as far as I can tell, and they are far less predictable and will definitely keep you on the edge, since you may need to suddenly retreat and close off some doors and things like that. But otherwise, destroyed enemies will net you a few extra scraps amongst other things. So sometimes there is an incentive to kill them, sometimes they will also offer you other mods and things like that. So it's a risk-reward based scenario. But aside from the actual enemies in the game, there's also natural events that can occur. So airlocks can break, start to depressurize certain rooms, or radiation can appear and start to spread throughout the ship, or even asteroids can hit particular rooms and either damage the rooms or destroy your drones. And all of these events pose a serious risk to your progress on the level. So these are things that you are going to have to keep an eye on as you are exploring the various ships in the game. And when you've got the enemies and you've got the environmental hazards presenting themselves, it definitely makes for some challenging scenarios. If your drones get disabled, you are able to tow them back to your ship if you do have another drone that has the tow capability. Damaged drones will require you to use scrap you have collected to repair them. And on top of all of that, some of the mods you pick up through the game also have a wear and tear. So as they are used more often, they have more and more of a chance of outright breaking. And this can happen at any time, or at least the most inopportune time, because RNG. So before each mission, you'll be able to set the loadout of each of your drones, that you can take up to 4 of them on each of the missions. And so you can switch mods between them, or take ones off damaged drones and that kind of thing. And depending on what kind of setup you have with the mods on your drone will determine what sort of playstyle or what sort of tactical play is going to be usable on any particular mission. So there are a fair variety of mods available in the game, as well as ship upgrades. There are a number of different enemies, as I mentioned earlier, as well as environmental hazards that can occur. And because of the randomness of the mods that you receive when starting the game, and the kinds of mods that you find, the experience does vary quite a bit for each playthrough, in my opinion. And this does definitely add a degree of replayability to the game. So all in all, I've really enjoyed my time with Duskers. It's something new and something fresh. There aren't a great many titles that I can actually compare this game to. I think it's quite unique in its presentation and its gameplay style. And I'd say that if you enjoy the idea of controlling drones and exploring creepy derelict spacecraft in what is essentially a roguelike, you'd very likely enjoy Duskers. I'm pretty excited to see what the next derelict spacecraft holds and what new monsters, mods and enemies I'll encounter. But anyway guys, that's been a look at Duskers. You can pick it up on Steam for $19.99. I believe there's a 10% discount at the moment for those of you who decide to pick it up before the 25th of May, if you are interested in doing so. Otherwise, if you've enjoyed the video, don't forget to like, subscribe and share, since that really helps out the channel a lot. Thanks very much guys for watching. I've been Xiaoling. Until next time.